20 items, and all of them are very important. Out of the 20, the first three, namely accepting the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, taking initiation from him, and serving him with respect and reverence, are the most important. Okay, so there's more to come. Shri Bhaktira Samrita Sindhu Ki Jai. So on the Vaishnav calendar today is Guru Purnima or Vyasa Purnima. So there's little said about this here, but we'll speak a bit more about it in a few minutes. This is the appearance day of Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedic literatures. Today, Vyasadeva and the spiritual master are worshipped especially. Sri Vyasa Purnima Ki Jai. And Sri Sanatana Goswami. He was born in 1488. He was the elder brother of Sri Rupa Goswami, and he too became a government minister in Ramakeli. Although belonging to a most respectable Brahmin family, considering himself to be converted into a Mohammedan due to constantly associating with them, he was exceptionally humble and meek. When Lord Chaitanya travelled on pilgrimage, he met the two brothers, then known as Dabir Kas and Sakar Malik, and initiated them, giving them the names Rupa and Sanatan. When Sanatan decided to get free from government responsibilities, he served a notice of sickness to the Nawab. Actually, however, he was studying Srimad Bhagavatam with Brahmins at home. The Nawab received information of this through a royal physician, and he immediately went to see Sanatana Goswami to uncover his intentions. Just like some of our devotees, they're pretending that they're working from home, but they're studying Srimad Bhagavatam or they're doing some service. They're pretending that they're working from home, yeah. Maybe they're so smart that they can do work of many people in a short time, and their motivation is just like Srila Prabhupada gives this example that when a man and woman have some affair, then sometimes they're very attentive to their work and they do it very efficiently so they can make some spare time for their secret rendezvous. So sometimes the devotees do that. If they have to do some material thing, they want to get it done quick and get it out of the way so they can get on with the devotional practices. The Nawab requested Sanatan to accompany him on an expedition to Orissa, but when Sanatana Goswami refused, the Nawab ordered him to be imprisoned. Taking advantage of the money that Rupa Goswami entrusted to a local grocer, Sanatan bribed the jailkeeper and escaped detention. Then he left for Varanasi to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord instructed Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi, explaining everything about devotional service and showing the import of the Atmarama verse from 61 different angles. He advised Sanatana Goswami to go to Vrindavan, excavate the lost holy places of pilgrimage, and write books on devotional service. In Vrindavan, Sanatana Goswami lived just like Rupa Goswami. He worshipped the deity of Srimad and Mohan. Formerly, he was known as Rati Manjari, or sometimes it is said Labanga Manjari. His books include the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Vaishnava Toshini, a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as Brihad, Vaishnava Toshini, and Lagu Toshini. Sri Sanatana Goswami Maharaj Ki. Chaturmasya. Chaturmasya period begins in the month Ashada, June, July. From the day of Ekadashi, called Sayana Ekadashi, in the fortnight of the waxing moon, the period ends in the month of Kartika, October, November, on the Ekadashi, known as Uttana Ekadashi, in the fortnight of the waxing moon. This 4-month period is known as Chaturmasya. Some Vaishnavas observe it from the full moon day of Ashada until full moon day of Kartika. This is also a period of 4 months. This period, calculated by the lunar months, is called Chaturmasya. But others also observe Chaturmasya according to the solar month from Shravan to Kartik. The whole period, either lunar or solar, takes place during the rainy season. Chaturmasya should be observed by all sections of the population. It does not matter whether one is Grihastha or Sannyasi. The observance is obligatory for all ashrams. The real purpose behind the vow taken during these 4 months is to minimize the quantity of sense gratification. This is not very difficult. In the month of Shradna, one should not eat spinach. In the month of Bhadra, one should not eat yogurt. In the month of Ashvina, one should not drink milk. In the month of Kartik, one should not eat masura dal or urad dal. On the whole, during the 4-month period of Chaturmasya, one should practice giving up all food intended for sense gratification. So that would be pretty hard in the temple because the prasadam is so good. But if we see it as prasad and accept it as Lord's mercy, that's a good thing. So Chaturmasya, the purpose of it was that the sages, the saints and sadhus, they would be traveling and preaching. And in the 4 months of the rainy season, then it wasn't practical for them to travel. So rather than just staying back in the ashram and just stocking up on burfis and curd sabjis, then they would be required to do some austerities. So you're not traveling and preaching, then accept some austerities, voluntary austerities. So strictly speaking, they would take some unsalted, unspiced kitchery, and it would be served typically on the leaf plates on the floor, and they'd eat. They wouldn't shave, so they would eat with their only with their mouth, not with their hands. So they'd have their hands behind their back, and they would go down and eat. And whenever they rise, then that's considered when they should stop eating for the day. So they'd eat once a day in just this kitchery like that. So you can just imagine if you went down to eat and you had one mouthful and somebody called your name, if you had welcome, and you get up, that's the end of it for you for the day. So that requires a bit of self-control. And so Srila Prabhupada talks about this, gradually reducing the bodily necessities. So such an act like this is reducing the bodily necessities, minimizing the bodily demands. And this way, when the sadhus were confined to 4 months of the rainy season, they'd stay in ashrams, then their senses would be more peaceful. They wouldn't simply just start contemplating objects of the senses and fretting over who's going to get the choicest Rajboga preparations out of the deity's plate. So we will speak a bit about Guru Purnima and Sanat Goswami a bit more from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 20, entitled The Lord Instructs Sanatana Goswami, text 312. So it's interesting that today is the disappearance of Sanatana Goswami, isn't it? I think it was a disappearance and the appearance of Vyasadeva. Because this chapter is a conversation between Sanatana Goswami and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'll do this first verse myself and then we can do the second one together. Shiva Shakti Yukta Shashvat Lingo Guna Shiva Shakti Yukta Shashvat Trilingo Guna Samvrita Vaikarikas Taija Shascha Tamasaschityaham Trida. The truth about Lord Shiva is that he is always covered with 3 material coverings, Vaikarika, Taijasa, and Tamasa. Because of these 3 modes of material nature, he always associates with the external energy and egotism itself. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.88.3. So we'll do text 1.3. Harir He Nirguna Sakshat Hare Guna sorry. Hare Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakrite Para Purusha Prakrite Para Sa Sarvadrig Upadrashta Sa Sarvadrig Upadrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit Harir Hi Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakriti Para Sasarva Drigupadrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit Harir Hi Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakriti Para Sasarva Drigupadrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit. Please chant. Harir Hi Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakriti Para Sasarvadrigi Padrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit Harir Hi Nirguna Sakshat Harir Hi Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakriti Para Sasarvadrigi Padrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit Harir Hi Nirguna Sakshat Purusha Prakriti Para Sasarvadrigi Padrashta Tam Bhajan Nirguno Bhavit Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, He certainly Nirguna, transcendental to all material qualities, Sakshat, directly, Purusha, the Supreme Enjoyer, Prakriti, pure nature, Para, beyond, Sa, He, Savadrik, the seer of everything, Upadrashta, the overseer of everything, Tam, him, Bhajan, by worshipping, Nirguna, transcendental to material qualities, Bhavet, one becomes. Translation: Sri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is situated beyond the range of material nature. Therefore, He is the Supreme Transcendental Person. He can see everything inside and outside. Therefore, He is the Supreme Overseer of all living entities. As someone takes shelter at His lotus feet and worships Him, he also attains a transcendental position. Let's repeat. Sri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is situated beyond the range of material nature. Therefore, He is the Supreme Transcendental Person. He can see everything inside and outside. Therefore, He is the Supreme Overseer of all living entities. If someone takes shelter at His lotus feet and worships Him, he also attains a transcendental position. Srila Prabhupada's purport. This is also a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.88.5. Any questions? Huh? That's for another day. So, it's not much to speak here from the purport, in the sense that the purport is actually the verse. But what we can do is relate this to a couple of topics on the Vaishnava calendar. Om Gyanantamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmalitam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhakam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Grim Yakripa Tamam Vande Shri Grim Dinitarnam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sri Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is situated beyond the range of material nature. Therefore, he is the Supreme Transcendental Person. He can see everything inside and outside. Therefore, he is the Supreme Overseer of all living entities. If someone takes shelter at his lotus feet and worships him, he also attains a transcendental position. Just like we were hearing there from the nectar of devotion, that we should rigidly give up the association of non-devotees. So by doing that, asat sangha tyag, renouncing association of that which is related to the material world, and by associating with the Supreme Lord, by taking shelter of his lotus feet and worshipping him, then we attain also transcendental position. So this is relating to the type of association we keep as who we are. There's a saying like that: show me the association you keep, and I'll show you who you are. Now, of course, the devotees sometimes they go out and they mix with the people of the material world. That doesn't mean to say that they have become materialists for the day, but actually they're going out there to give association, not to take it. And we may not think that I've got much to give. I'm very neophyte. I've got so much purification required myself before I can give any good association. But when we go out, the association we give is primarily a three-pronged attack, which is prasadam distribution. We're giving people association of Krishna directly through prasad. Book distribution, so we give them the association of Srila Prabhupada, and Harinam Sankirtan, the association of Krishna through the medium of the holy name. They're directly associated with the Lord by hearing the holy names. And it's interesting because when we go out on the streets and we chant, or like we do these Rath Yatra festivals, you see that people are attracted to this. It's natural because Krishna is all attractive. Then it's natural for the living entity to be attracted. Unless they're actually very envious, then it's also natural for them to be repulsed. And sometimes we see that it polarizes people when the Harinam goes on the street. Sometimes you get people giving you some trouble. Like last Saturday, the devotees were in Edinburgh, and someone tried to give some aggro to the devotees. But Srila Prabhupada said that when the camel train is passing through the desert, sometimes it passes through some very small village, or you see some wild dogs, and the dogs come and bark at the camels, but the camels don't even blink. The dog is it's so insignificant, they don't even bother giving it a kick out the road. They don't give it any attention. So similarly, Prabhupada says, although we should just be like that, when people are criticizing the devotees or opposing them, then we just accept it as barking dogs, and the camel train still passes through. Also in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada explains about how the devotees undertake so many risks to spread Lord Chaitanya's movement. And this makes them very dear to the Lord. And sometimes they're criticized But Srila Prabhupada says that despite such criticism from people who are no better than hogs and dogs, then the devotees continue with this very responsible preaching work. So in this way we can see that behind us the whole time we have the Guru Parampara, we have the blessings of Lord Chaitanya. So therefore we shouldn't be concerned when there's some opposition. We used to consider it actually a good sign. If there's some opposition, it means that we must be getting somewhere. And I'll give another quote from Srila Prabhupada. He says that when, first of all, they will hate the devotees. No, first of all, they'll laugh at the devotees. That's what it was. And then they'll hate them, and then they'll love them. So they laugh at the devotees because they think they're just some kind of like circus act or some strange acid casualty, some LSD casualty or something like that. And then when they hear the philosophy of the devotees, then they may hate them. Do you want to see to them? Yeah. They can have a wander around if they want until then. So when people actually see what the devotees stand for and they realize they're not just a bunch of cranks, then they may actually oppose the devotees. But then when they actually realize that what the devotees are offering is actually the solution, and we shouldn't be egotistical about it, thinking we've got the answer and everyone else is just a fool. Actually, we are also the same. Had we not got this message of the Bhagavatam and message from Guru Srila Prabhupada, the sixth succession, then we also would be like that. There go I, but by the grace of God. So our compassion is that we try to serve the Lord's desire to help rescue these fallen conditioned souls just as much as we were also rescued. Everyone okay? So because the Lord is absolute, when the people associate with the Lord in any aspect, hearing, seeing the form, like Prabhupada used to refer to these pictures in the books as windows to the spiritual world. And personally, I can testify that because before we could even read or understand anything in Prabhupada's books, we seen the pictures, which were definitely like windows to the spiritual world. They're very, very intriguing, and the soul has never seen such a thing. And I had a very interesting experience once. I was doing a book distribution in Lancaster, and this woman came down the street with a small child in the buggy, the push chair. And the child must have been maybe 2 years old. It looked like it had probably just learned to speak. And it was distributing Shri Ishopanishad, Shishikonitai Mapishashiki. So it was, distributing Srimad, the Ishopanishad, and when I approached this lady and I showed her the picture, showed her Ishopanishad, asked her to stop, and then she stopped. As I tried to give the book, she said she wasn't interested, but the child pointed to the book and said, "Look, Mum, it's God." And her mum's like, "What are you on about? That's God." Like kid, 2, 3 year old, 3 at the very most. And it was just such a mind blower for all of us. So I was just, at that time, I was just praying, I hope that soul finds Krishna again. And they instinctively knew, it must have been from previous life or remembering in the womb, because it's understood that the living entity prays within the womb that we don't forget Krishna this lifetime. We've forgotten him so many lifetimes. Don't let me become enamored when I come out the womb. Don't let me become distracted. Don't let me waste another life. Don't let me come to the point of the end of this life and having realized I just got distracted again. So the living entity is continually praying like that. And sometimes the determination of the living entity continues after the womb, where they resist all the kuchiku and gaga from the parents. But this is explained in the third canto that when the living entity takes birth, then all the family members gather around it, practically worship the living entity. And then it becomes enamored, it starts to feel special again, and it forgets Krishna, forgets its promises to Krishna. So hearing this, then we remembered of the promises which we made to Krishna, and we can once again continue with this and make good of this promise so that we don't come at the end of this life and having wasted it. So we'd like to speak a little bit about, because Lord Krishna here, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is the Supreme Spiritual Master. So we see in Bhagavad Gita, Karpanya dosho pahata subhava prachamitam dharma samudacheta yashvehi nashitam bruhitan me shashashtiham shadimam tvam prapanam. So Arjuna, he approaches Krishna. Now I'm confused about my duty and I've lost all composure due to my weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So at that time, not everybody realized that Krishna was God. Some people did. And even though Arjuna he's in this friendly rasa with Krishna, when the situation was there, his natural inclination was to take shelter of Krishna as Krishna's eternal devotee. And Prabhupada explains that when Arjuna approached Krishna like this, then friendly talk stopped and Krishna immediately assumed the role of spiritual master. Sometimes the devotees are like that with each other. It's like they may be bewildered when they approach a devotee. And normally the association may be friendly. And we have to be careful also it doesn't become too familiar, or we can become lackadaisical in that association. But when we're struggling, if we have a little intelligence, we'll then approach a devotee and say, "Oh, Prabhu, my head's just in a spin, or I'm in the left field, or whatever other term, I'm fried, I'm short-circuited." You get so many jargon the devotees use. Basically, if we take it back to what Arjuna is saying, is we've become confused about our duty, we've become bewildered by Maya. It seems like almost it's offence to say a devotee's in Maya nowadays. But that would mean, okay, none of us are in Maya, we're all completely free from Maya. So yeah, of course we're in Maya. And the proof is there when Prabhupada's disciple, I think it was Guru Dasa, he said to him, "Oh, Prabhupada, sometimes I fall into Maya." Prabhupada says, "No, sometimes," he says, "you're always in Maya, sometimes you fall into Krishna." So this is the great fortune we have of this wealth of knowledge there, which we can put into our everyday practice and help us to understand our position in reality. So then immediately Krishna, he says, "Asochanam vasochas tvam pragyavadam shivasya gadasya naktasam chanana shochanti pandita." So while you're speaking like a pandit, like a learned person, you're actually talking nonsense. You're posing as a person in knowledge by saying, "I don't want to do this because of that. I don't want to do this because of that." But you've actually just become bewildered. So now, actually, that you have surrendered and you've acknowledged that you're bewildered and confused, now I can tell you what the right path is, the path to follow. So Krishna gives him so much knowledge. First of all, he says, "Never is a time when I do not exist, nor you, nor all these kings." So he's preaching about, those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So immediately, first thing he does is tell him, "You're not the body, you're spirit soul. And everyone else here, they're also spirit souls and they're eternal individuals. And in order to become free from this duality, we have to learn tolerance." So this is extremely important thing. Especially amongst devotees, we live with each other. And one day we may be best of friends, next day we can't look at each other. And then next day we're best of friends again. So Krishna is saying, we have to learn to tolerate ourselves, tolerate each other, understand that also we're being tolerated. Just like recently, there was one devotee who was speaking in such a very kind of hateful way about another devotee, and we tried to point it out to this other devotee that this is a very bad attitude for a devotee to have. We have to see, okay, you're focusing on someone's faults, but it's not making you a better person. It's not making you a better devotee. Hate is coming out, so that means the bigger fault is in yourself. So we should see that if we can't look at a devotee's faults with compassion and we look at their faults with hate, then the bigger fault is with ourselves, and we have to address that. And the best way to do that is to serve a devotee. Try to find some way to serve them and see the good that they're in. Everybody is engaging in devotion service, which means willingly they're trying to do something of their own accord. Nobody has to be here. From the youngest devotee to the oldest, nobody has to be here. We can all walk out the door anytime we like. But why do we stay? Because we want to be a devotee. We've realized something which has brought us to Krishna. And there may be so many different things. We got a book, we heard Harinam, we got Prasad, but one way or another, we got smitten by Krishna, the all-attractive personality of Godhead. And, we can explain it in so many different details, but the principle is Krishna attracted us. He's attracting us back. So normally we become attracted by the material energy, and sometimes we may still be attracted by the material energy. But gradually that's starting to change, where we become attracted to Krishna. So if we're becoming attracted once again by the material energy, don't try to figure it out. That's trying to sort out a material problem with material solution. Just engage more in spiritual activity, read more and chant more, serve more. And this is how we transcend the mind, is regardless of whatever our duty is, regardless of whatever's going on in the mind, we don't stop serving, we don't stop chanting. In fact, when the mind becomes bigger and becomes more difficult, then we just get the hand in the bead bag immediately, start chanting more, start reading more. Prabhupada says the chanting is the thinking. Of course, that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't think. We should. But if our thinking isn't elevating us, then take shelter in Krishna. So just like here, it's mentioning here that if someone takes shelter at his lotus feet and worships him, he also attains a transcendental position. So the time to take shelter in the Lord in Kali Yuga is always, because padam yadvipadam, there's danger at every step in Kali Yuga. We cannot afford to be complacent. We have to be vigilant. Maya is so subtle, we cannot see Maya coming. So this takes us on to speaking a little bit more about Guru Purnima and Sanatana Goswami. So it's in Vrindavan, it's seen that on this day, I've actually been in Vrindavan on this day, and it's amazing because people come from all over, particularly from Delhi. They come, and on this full moon, this full moon is considered the brightest of all the full moons because it's after the longest day, and it's particularly when the reflection of the sun by the moon is at its brightest because of the position, the astronomical position. And the word guru, can anyone say what guru means? Different translations, but heavy. Yep. So does that mean that there should be a ladhu sadhu? Does anyone know what a ladhu sadhu is? Ladhu sadhu, you actually have these ladhu sadhus that get hired to come to special events like weddings and stuff like that, and they're huge big guys, and you feed them loads of ladhus. I wonder if they're all diabetic. But they're huge, and they're called laddu sadhus basically because it's that you should. One of the scriptural injunctions is to make any yajna or samskar complete and favourable. Then you should feed the Brahmins, feed the sadhus. So this is their job, to be fed, and they get paid for it. And they're huge, big laddu sadhus. So it doesn't mean that kind of heavy. It means heavy with knowledge. So like this word grave, sometimes you see Prabhupada, he could be very grave, and if you mistakenly think that, oh, he just looks miserable, then it's not. It's his gravity is because of compassion, that knowledge there. He's compassionate. There was one person asked Prabhupada, I think it was maybe a reporter, and they said, oh, you talk about chanting be happy, but you don't look very happy. So Prabhupada just immediately, the devotees there who witnessed it said Prabhupada immediately smiled and it lit up the whole room and the whole atmosphere lifted. And he says, actually, I'm experiencing great bliss at every moment. So even though the devotee is experiencing great bliss at every moment, sometimes on the surface they may appear grave, just like, and sometimes they may even superficially appear troubled, but they never give up their determination to serve the order of the spiritual master, to serve the order of the Lord. And this is compared to sometimes the ocean, which is very deep. On the surface, it may appear rough, but just shortly below that, the depth of it is calm. Whereas sometimes you'll see some shallow waters, it may appear just like in some places in Scotland, we see there's signs say no bathing, danger of death, and you think, oh, that looks okay. But you dive in, there can be undercurrents. So sometimes materially peaceful, they look very peaceful, and you get some so-called sadhus who look very shanty. But underneath, there's turbulence of material desires. For sometimes they're not so obvious, like, you might not be looking for a cigarette or a pint of beer or something like that, or a fish supper, but they might be looking for the subtle sense gratification, which is fame, distinction, adoration, and gain. These are the four things of subtle sex life: fame, distinction, adoration, and gain. And ultimately, they do lead to the gross. So this word guru is also translated as gu, means darkness, and ru means cessation of, or removal of. So the guru, he removes the darkness. So therefore it's called Guru Purnima, because just as some people, they stay up on this full moon night and they'll go on parikram, like we were saying in Vrindavan, you see there's throngs of people. There's practically the whole way around Govardhan Hill. It's just back to back, people all the way around. It's just packed out. It's amazing to see. And everybody's chanting as they're going round. So of course this is an amazing way to spend that time. And it is symbolic that this Purnima is Guru Purnima, because as it is the brightest of the full moons, then the spiritual master, then he's also dispelling the darkness. So we say Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshram Tamina Tasmashi Gurave Namaha. And by the way, it's Gurave, not Guruve. I noticed that devotees, they probably haven't read it close enough. But this Om Jnana Tamarandasya, so our eyes are covered by darkness, but the spiritual master, he's opening these eyes. And sometimes the translation is my spiritual master is forcing open my eyes. So sometimes the spiritual master is gently opening them, and sometimes he's forcibly opening them, because sometimes we're trying to keep them shut. You've already been wakened, but you're lying in your bed like this. No, I'm still asleep. Okay, force them open. Bucket of cold water. They used to do this in some ashrams, didn't they? If the devotees didn't get up, it would be cold water, which is the least austere, getting up or remaining in the bed with cold water. So the spiritual master's kindness is sometimes that he will forcibly open, so therefore sometimes he says strong words, or he'll cut So the word sadhu, it means actually one who cuts. That is one, but he cuts not with a blunt, rusty blade. Not just like, oh, sadhu, right? We just go about cutting people. Then no, we want to make sure that we don't do a mrigrari on them. We leave them like half dead. Cut clean, which means just like a surgeon, he wouldn't approach to do an operation without having the correct instrument sharp and sanitized. He wouldn't take a risk of making an operation without the proper implement. So the spiritual master or another devotee, if they have to give some direction, then they try to make sure that they're given the direction which is going to help the person. But sometimes, if someone is an emergency or there's urgent need for instruction, they may not have time to beat around the bush and give 50 instructions in the hope that they'll come to understand it sometime. Sometimes you have to say it very straightforwardly. So the opposite of the word guru is lagu. Lagu means very small or short, just like a measurement of time, one lagu. Like lagu Bhagavatam. And then another word for guru is large or great or heavy, like Pradyumna saying, heavy with knowledge. And knowledge of what? So one time Prabhupada was asked how many windows are in the Empire State Building. And Prabhupada said, this is not knowledge. So we have to understand what is knowledge. And therefore we see the Shastras are there to teach us, like, first of all, if you want to approach the spiritual master, first of all, this is how you approach. And you need to know who is a spiritual master and what are the questions. So spiritual master, first of all, they come in disciplic succession, they're authorized. And then we have questions there. What are the questions? And what is the mood of the question? Not just what is the question, not a challenging question. Not like, okay, you're a spiritual master, you can show me God, so I'll give you 5 minutes, or you're bogus. It's not like that. He's showing us the path. Mahajana Katasapanta. He's treading that path and he's showing us, follow in my footsteps and you'll be fine. And Prabhupada said that if you just follow these regulative principles, chant 16 rounds, guaranteed we go back to Godhead. And dedicate our life to this preaching, then even if we have some difficulty remembering Lord Chaitanya, at the end, he won't forget us. He'll come and force his way into our mind. So the spiritual master, he's giving knowledge of Krishna, how to attain Krishna. He's giving us knowledge of the path which we should follow, the path which we should avoid. So in this way, the lesson from Ishopanishad is to know the path of nescience and knowledge side by side. Then it's very clear to us. And he also knows the appropriate medicine to give us and the appropriate dosage. So this is Vyasadev's appearance. So as a compiler of the Vedas, then it's also known as Vyasa Purnima. So there's this, sometimes we sing this verse, and Prabhupada, he would quote part of it. Tamasama Jyotirgamaya, come from the darkness, go to the light. So, of course, for devotees, that doesn't just mean some kind of blinding, homogeneous, impersonal light. We're talking about the light of knowledge of Krishna consciousness. So this Om Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotigamaya, Mrityumam Gamaya means to go from illusion to truth, from darkness to light, and from death to immortality. So this is what the spiritual master is giving us. And from the very beginning, Prabhupada was giving these messages. that famous lecture where the person said that he didn't want to bow down, he didn't feel he had to bow down to anyone, and no one should bow down to him. And Prabhupada very expertly said, very good, you have diagnosed your own disease. It's amazing, because when you hear these questions or challenges, you think, oh, how would I answer that? Or how's Prabhupada going to answer that? And he doesn't just say, oh, you're complete nonsense, shut up. He says, oh, very good. He compliments him, you have diagnosed your own disease. And then he says, so you don't want to bow down to anyone, but actually you're having to bow down to birth, death, old age, and disease. You cannot refuse. But you bow down to Krishna, then no more bowing down to birth, death, old age, and disease. That is what I'm giving. So this is what the spiritual master has given. From asat to sat, from tamas to jyotir, light, and from mrityu to amrita, from death to the nectar of immortality. But you'll get people who take advantage of this, and like this one guy just now calls himself Sadguru, which is, I think, is quite sad. And I heard one devotee speak about him, and he said that he hasn't read Bhagavad Gita, he hasn't read the Upanishads, he hasn't read the Yoga Sutras, but yet he's posing to be a person of knowledge. But these are the authorized representation. So as soon as someone does that, then you think, oh, they've got no authority, why listen to them? But people, because they're very good at twisting words, then people will listen to them. And this devotee type of it said that a fake guru cannot know God, he can only cheat. And Krishna says, Naham prakasha savasya, so Bhagavad Gita 7.25, that I'm never manifest to the foolish or unintelligent. So if we want to be intelligent, then we follow Krishna's directions. We follow directions given by the Guru Parampara, given from the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, handed all the way down. And Prabhupada said that his only qualification is he never changed anything. So he's not, and this is an austerity for the mind. So we see in the Nectar of Instruction, text 1, Vacha Vegam Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam Uttara Pasta Vegam, Itan Vegan. Does anyone remember the rest of that? So basically he's saying that by controlling the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, etc., then one is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So this urge to speak, we control that by reciting Vedic literature. When Prabhupada says, my only qualification is I never changed anything, and we can see this is in line with that first instruction from Rupa Goswami, that he didn't change anything. He resisted the urge to speak and give some interpretation, but actually he just explained it as it is. And the intelligence comes from Krishna. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. So intelligence comes from Krishna. And I always like to give some reference to Srila Prabhupada, because we have the Bhagavatam, the book, and we have Bhagavat, the person, and Hare Prabhu, who was a personal servant of Srila Prabhupada for 18 months. Then he does a whole series of seminars and talks on Prabhupada, the living Bhagavatam. So there was one time when Hare Krishna Prabhu, who was also one of Prabhupada's servants and close associates, then he was cooking for Srila Prabhupada. Now he was renowned for being extremely intelligent and even sometimes argumentative with Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada tolerated it, and he also what do you say? He would defeat Hare Krishna, for want of a better word, or enlighten Hare Krishna. So one time he was cooking for Prabhupada, and when he came to bring his lunch, Then he brought him some so-called chapatis, which were like frisbees. And Prabhupada said, "What's this? This isn't a chapati." And he said, "It's this electric stove." So Prabhupada set him back, and then he came back like 3 times or something like that. He came back, he says, "No, this is not a chapati." And he said, "Oh, Prabhupada, it's impossible to make chapatis on this electric stove." So Prabhupada got up from his seat and he went to the kitchen and he got the dough. And he didn't even use a rolling pin, he just did it in his hands, put it on the stove, puffed up, and he threw it in his face. And he did another one, puffed up, popped it on his face. Third one, says, big brain, can't even make a simple chapati. And he used this to protect his devotee from his own intelligence. He'd really, massive God-given intelligence, and he did some amazing work preaching in the East Bloc countries in the USSR, risking life and limb. And, there's some amazing stories of the preaching he did. But Prabhupada kept him humble. And he says, don't forget, I'm your intelligence. So materially, someone may have a lot of intelligence, but unless they use that in connection with Guru Sadhu and Shastra, then it can be, rather than being a blessing, it can be a curse. So I guess I could speak more, but I won't, because we'll be speaking a bit more about this later on. And we can speak a bit more about Sanatana Goswami later on as well. So I'd just like to ask any comments or questions at this point.
I have a little comment about Sanatana. I wonder if that, should we feel compassionate for them because, he's sort of fake guru? Because are they just completely ignorant? We had a Mayavadi conversation for a few days after that yatra, and she's on a very exciting journey, but it's just because she doesn't know, she's not very spiritual, and I used to be very much into sort of Mayavadi ideology when I started to find consciousness. So, but then again, we're not going around presenting the guru, so yeah, I don't know, is it just ignorance that we should maybe have to be forgive them they don't know, or are they actually bad people?
Yes, so generally the devotees, because these people are misleading people, the devotees speak strongly against them. And there was an occasion where someone was talking about some nonsense Mayavadi person, and Prabhupada says, bring him here, I'll kick on face with a shoe. So of course he's not physically going to do it, but he would preach strongly. Prabhupada would also show compassion. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, they're thinking like this. But when someone's actually misleading people, then that requires some strong preaching. You have to be compassionate to a dangerous tiger. Means keep out the way, or you take necessary means to defend yourself from it, or you point out the dangers of going anywhere near it. But then you would be compassionate to the victims of the tiger or the snake. So of course, if we see in Srila Prabhupada's own example, when he was on French TV Live and he met with Cardinal Danilou, the head of the Catholic Church, then his compassion was to speak strongly, and we could see that if Prabhupada could get him to agree, then there could be a great pairing of faith there. And as long as the man kept on resisting and come up with excuses, and Prabhupada just kept it very strong, you're thou shalt not kill, why are you killing? And then the cardinal was given some reasons, but the reasons were just falling short of any real necessity. And Prabhupada was making that very clear. So first of all, expose, and then if the person, and we see in Lord Chaitanya's line, there would be people who were Mayavadi gurus, etc., and Lord Chaitanya would convert them, and then they'd become great devotees. So we shouldn't condemn them. We don't have that. And we should feel compassion, but the compassion manifests in the form of strongly resisting them. And therefore, when we're reading, we should try to get the ammo for that. We should load up our spiritual arsenal with the arguments to defeat them, so that even if they're sincere and they're just ignorant due to a poor fund of knowledge, as Prabhupada puts it, then when they hear the better fund of knowledge, they'll take to it. This is the proper Vedic way, that when someone presents a higher Siddhanta, then they take to that. But if they don't, then that means they're not actually sincere, they're ill-intended, but at least their followers, or some of them, may hear. So, is that okay? All right. Anything else? ISKCON Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.